Hey everyone, my name is Ngesihle Mkhize, aka Ingzara, but better known in the classroom as Miss Ingi. You're watching Inspiring Teachers. Inspiring Teachers aims to give teachers a platform to share their personal stories.
In your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, in your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor.
Listen authentically to a story. May you be inspired.
Hey Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm very, very great, thanks. It's so lovely to have you and to actually have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for being willing to be a part of Inspiring Teachers.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored, honestly.
We really appreciate it. So, Patrick, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, for those who don't know me, my name is Patrick Harris. I am a fifth year middle school English teacher here in Detroit, Michigan, in the United States. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was a preschooler, even so much so that I went to preschool a semester early because I just wanted to be around that teacher, that classroom, play with those kids, and just be in school the same way that my older cousins were in school.
So you just always wanted to be a teacher. There hasn't ever been any other thing that you wanted to become?
There were other things that I was interested in. I was interested in being a chef. I was interested in being a journalist. I was interested in working in business and communications and human resources, but I felt called to teaching. I felt like I needed to be in education. And every time that I felt like I was going to do something else, there was some opportunity that came out of nowhere that then called me back to teaching.
Tell us a little bit more about that journey, like how you actually started to be in the educational field.
Yeah, so I went to Michigan State University here in East Lansing, Michigan, which is the #1 school for teacher preparation in our country. And I majored in elementary education. I'm the first in my family to ever go to post-secondary school.
Come on.
And, first to graduate as well. And so it was just a really awesome experience. I got a chance to obviously volunteer in some classrooms, do some other opportunities. And it just was cool. But in post-secondary school and college, I really learned that, yes, I love teaching, but I more so was fascinated with teaching for social justice, teaching equity, teaching to make a difference, not just because the art of teaching. And so I was like, okay, yeah, now I know why I really need to be here. And so after I graduated,
do you think that your wanting to do social justice and transformation has got to do with your own personal story of being the first in your family to graduate, being the first in your family? You also want to give somebody that kind of opportunity as well. What has it got to do with your social transformation journey?
That is a piece of it, wanting to create more firsts for other families and be a part of that. The main piece of it is just being Black, being a Black man in America and understanding and knowing and living through injustice, living through racism.
Sure.
And I think that I've seen so much unfairness and inequity that education is supposed to be the equalizer.
Sure.
And so having a black male teacher can give someone that chance, then I think ultimately I'm doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing.
Sure. So you speak of being black and being a teacher and male as well in the teaching world. It's actually my first interview, actually interviewing a male teacher. And it's really awesome.
Hey.
Really great. You're a black male teacher, and the experience of being a black male teacher is very different for everyone. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of being a black male teacher and how it is like to be in a classroom where you need to be an educator, a teacher for children? What do you feel that you need to give children?
Well, you know, it's so crazy because here in America, and I'm not sure what the numbers are nationwide, but in America, black male teachers are 2% less, a little less than 2% of the teaching force. Sure. So we are a unicorn, basically, very hard to find. Yeah. And so I find that I'm either some students' first black male teachers and sometimes they're only. Yeah. So I take the responsibility very greatly. As far as my experience, it depends on where I am. You know, when I taught all boys, all black boys, that was, you know, different from when I taught a co-ed group of first graders, right? Versus when I taught a co-ed group of middle school, versus when I taught in Qatar, right? Like, you know, the experience is different, and it really just depends on how people view and see those black males, and how you view and see black males is exactly how it was when I was treated, right? So I think for those first graders who I taught, it was like, wow, okay, we've never seen a black male as a teacher, so they were sort of fascinated by me. Versus when I was as I'm teaching middle school now, right? Like, there are some students who like I'm the first black male teacher that they've ever had, and so the way that they treat me is very interesting, very different, because it's very new for them. Yeah. You know, coming from having a lot of white teachers their entire lives, versus when I was in Qatar, some of them have never seen a black American male in their entire lives, right? And so having to then train them on how to treat me, train them on how to talk to me, and kind of diminish those stereotypes that were so present. Sure. And so it depends on where I am in the context, but I always show up as myself, and I bring my experiences with me.
You know, Patrick, it's lovely to hear that you're always like bringing who you are. You're not somebody who's going to only bring half of who you are. You're a black male man who is in the teaching profession, and you want your children to really know that and understand it. And I'm getting a lot that you want students to actually know how to treat others in the community, in their context, wherever they should be. They should know how to treat people, and you demonstrate it in your own classroom. Tell us how you would how something like this would take place in your classroom.
Yeah, I don't shy away from talking about race. It's very critical.
Can you tell us why is it critical? Why is it important for people to know?
Because we live in a racialized society.
Yeah.
And we live in an anti-black world. And I can say that as being a teacher who was taught overseas, right? Like, no matter where you go, race is going to be everywhere around you. Because that's just where we are from. That's just how we have sort of grown up. There's so much hard history, and you know, being from South Africa, surrounding around race, you know. And so I would do my ancestors a disservice if I said, oh, I'm not black, no, you know, I don't see color, I'm just, you know, no, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. The same way that I walked on to a school and kids who are not of my race are saying, what up my N-word, you know what I'm saying? Like, we live in a racialized society. You know, even when I'm teaching back here and there's another black man that's been shot while jogging, we live in a racialized society. And so I make it a point to not only talk about race, but teach race, right? So we give kids the academic language, give them the real history. You know what I'm talking about? The real history.
Yeah, the real history.
That they get a chance to learn and grapple with and know. And it's my greatest hope that when they learn that and when they grapple with that and when they know that, they then make it a part of them and they go on no matter what industry that they're in, that they're fighting for other people.
Sure, that's lovely. And another thing is, like, you speak of race. I know that we're going into race, but that is who you are, and essentially like what it is like for you to be teaching as a male teacher. Can you tell us a little bit, just an understanding or a background of why you feel like teaching race? Because in the curriculum, I don't think race is really a big part of the curriculum. So how do you mesh up these two things together?
So the way that I've done it is I always start off with teaching DNA, right? Students have to first learn that their race is not in your biology. It's not in your DNA. There's no gene that says colored. There's no gene that says black. There's no gene that says Arab, right?
Yes.
It's like when you are born, you know, it's socially constructed. And so I spend time teaching that science, teaching that history, so that we are aware of all of that. Okay? Sure. After I teach the science of race, then we go on and we start to learn about how race has manifested itself in the earliest of histories and then throughout. And what I see is that it creates a lens for students to look through. And they learn that, you know, race was created by the dominant culture to then further their dominance, right? And so now that they know that, they attach that to their lens, their glasses, right? And everything that they learn from their point forward, they learn through that. They learn that there is a dominance, they learn that there's a social hierarchy, and they're able to apply that to the books they read. So it's my hope that with this lens, they're able to then apply that to all of the different subjects, all of the different books that they read. Sure. And it just makes them more socially aware.
Yo, Patrick, like I want to have a part 2 for your interview, because I think there's a lot that I'm also learning about, just as somebody who is of color, Black, and in the educational field. I think there's a lot that we don't understand or we don't realize when we're teaching kids. And as a male, I think you have actually been able to take something and actually teach this generation of things that people are afraid of teaching them, of actually speaking about things that people are afraid of speaking about, because you don't find a lot of teachers wanting to speak about race because of the friction that it can cause inside the classrooms. And I'm so inspired by you as an individual, that you really always wanting to show social justice to people, and your children must also have that kind of lens, which is really important and amazing.
And it will cause friction, and that's okay. It will cause conflict. That's okay. Race is conflict.
Yeah.
Since the very beginning of time, race has been created around conflict.
Sure.
So it's okay that exists. People want racial harmony. They want the Rainbow Nation. They want everybody to get along. But we know that we have a long way to go with reparations and correcting the damage that has been done by white people onto Black people for hundreds and hundreds of years before we can just talk about getting along. People want to move past race, but we have a long way to go. And before we can talk about moving on, we have to talk about acknowledging the hurt that has been done to communities, to our grandparents, to our great-grandparents, to our ancestors, before we can talk about moving on. And until we really sink into that, we don't, it's okay to have some conflict. It's okay.
But do you feel, but what about in this context, like when children haven't actually had, they haven't had racism law, like in contact with it, like directly at this
Yeah.
age? So do you not feel like you are fighting a battle that is not for the kids that you teach?
Good question. So I think, first of all, young kids recognize race, right? They are absorbing messages about people from the books that they read, the TV shows that they watch, the YouTube, right? And so, like, even if they have not absorbed or seen racism directly, they're still absorbing messages. What all kids know, no matter what age, no matter what context, is they know what is fair and what is unfair. The kids would tell you, oh, that's not fair, right? So when you're teaching about any sort of like racial history, you just bring it back to that concept, to that question. Was this fair for this group to do this? Was it fair for this group to do that? It's not about me placing my own feelings or beliefs, because the facts are the facts. But it's like, at the end of the day, kids will be able to recognize and grapple with this concept of fairness at young ages. That's why we teach about, you know, civil rights movement and stuff like that. So it's not about me telling them. It's like they already see it. It's about me contextualizing it for them through history and through teaching.
Wow, Patrick, I am truly inspired. Like I've never really looked at race as something that we need to teach our children, especially from the perspective that you have just come up like with, like fairness, understanding that children actually come into contact with content. They come into contact with things that we don't realize that they do come into contact with. And when you as a Black teacher go into the classroom, it's important for them to understand that these things are there, but we need to be able to deal with these racial things that happen around us. And in different contexts, obviously, race is very different, but it's really important for us to know. So, Patrick, if somebody was listening to this talk, what would you want them to get out of it? What do you want your children to get out of your own classroom?
So 2 parts. The first is, I'll start with people who are listening. If you're listening to this podcast and you are, or this episode, and you are a teacher, I want you to keep grinding, keep going, keep moving. And I want you to think about what are some things or some content, some skills that you need all students to know in order to be productive people in whatever context they're in. How are they going to move society forward for all people, not just a certain sector of people, not just a certain group? How are they going to move society for all people, but especially Black people, Indigenous people, people of color who have not been treated fairly over hundreds of years? How are they going to act for those people? How are they going to empathize with them? And then what do students actually care about, right? So how can you kind of fuse the two together? And you know, for my students who I teach every day, oh my goodness, what do I want them to get out? I want them to be able to have empathy for all people. I want them to have a sense of urgency about joining the fight for justice, for joining the fight for equality and equity for all people, no matter where they are.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Patrick. We really appreciate it. And you've given a lot of insights. And I think that people can take a lot from this conversation, and people can choose to take something out and people can choose not to take. But I really wish that they can take something out of this conversation. Thank you so much. And I hope you continue to being an inspiring teacher that you are, and allowing children to have their voice even at such a young age. It's really important.
Yes.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Once you discover what it will be, set out to do it, and to do it well. be a bush, if you can't be a tree, if you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by signs that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are.
Today, you might have noticed that we did a virtual interview. As a way to practice social distancing, we'll continue doing virtual interviews so that you can be inspired continuously through this pandemic. Thank you for watching. Bye. See you again next week.